Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story where an entitled customer thought he could bowl over the rules and ended up getting banned instead. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled customer didn't know I was more patient than the managers. I work at a college town bowling alley, and most of my coworkers do go to said college or nearby high schools. I'm lucky to have supervisors who let us stick up for ourselves when people are a bit unreasonable. 9 out of 10 times, a supervisor will allow us to kick out someone on a 3-strike basis. A guy and his son came in, and he was being really rough on our equipment, stepping on our lanes, even chipped a ball after he jumped the gutter. I was new to the job and being nice and just kept track of how many times he broke each rule. I informed him of the rules gently every time he broke one, and the 5th time I talked to him, he goes, "BC, do you know who my wife is?" Me, "Your wife's status doesn't change our company's rules. Step on the lane to bowl like that again, and my supervisor will be escorting you out." BC, "You won't want to do that if you go to nearby college." Me, "I don't. I didn't." EC, "She's on the board there." He had a smug look, expecting me to bend over backwards now. Me, "That's nice. If you retrieve your own ball again or hit our lane sweep again, you're getting kicked out." Keep in mind I was still 1 month into this new job. My manager that day was known for her no bullcrap customer policy among the workers, and I was being nice, trying to be the middleman and filtering what my manager said. EC, "No, I'm not. I paid for an hour, and I'm playing an hour. I'll make sure you lose this job, too," insinuating I won't be able to attend the local college, which is fine. I didn't like the local college. I shrug and get my supervisor. S. OP told me a bit about the situation. EC, "Good. I want our wasted time to be refunded, and I want that employee written up for pointlessly bothering me. My wife's on the college board, and I can't wait to tell her about this." S. You are aware I was just at the counter, 5 feet away. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. EC, I paid to bowl. You explain this to my son. His son was like 6. S. Right. She knelt to the confused boy. Your daddy won't follow the rules, so I'm afraid you can't play anymore until he says sorry to the nice lady helping you. EC got mad and started yelling expletives, insults, and the like, saying she wasn't really the supervisor because she looked like she was in high school. She was. Demanded to talk to someone higher, despite my supervisor saying she was the highest one on duty. The GM's little sister was working that day and got a video of the whole thing since it was so close to the counter to send to her brother. The general manager came soon after. He's like a year older than me, and demanded EC leave. He was no longer welcome there, and he hopes his wife does hear about this incident. EC then called GM a liar, that he was too young to be a GM because he didn't even look 30. He then pulled the "I'm friends with the owner" bull, that we will all be fired because of how we handled this. It took threatening police to get him to leave. We told the owner the next day, and oh, yeah, I thought we banned that guy. He broke lane 16. This guy really thought his wife's status would magically bend bowling alley rules? Please. The fact that he name-dropped the owner and claimed he was already banned makes it even juicier. He's clearly a repeat offender. The part where your supervisor calmly explained the situation to his kid? Absolute gold. And our second story. You won't promote me? Fine, have it your way. After graduation, I was hired by this small family business. They told me the training would be tough, but that they only wanted me to succeed because we're like a family here. That should have been the first red flag, but it was my first job and I didn't know any better. When I was starting, I barely slept. I constantly had to do unpaid overtime. On some occasions, I was even required to stay overnight at the office just to meet unreasonable deadlines. However, I loved my field and I managed to find joy in my work. Management, however, was a different story. I was assigned to a manager, Chelsea. Working for her was an absolute nightmare. She meddled in my personal life. At first, I was very candid with her and even opened up about the people I dated. I found out later that she was gossiping about me with another manager, Rita, and that they were stalking my social media to get more dirt. I ended up deactivating my accounts or blocking them just to get some peace. Chelsea and Rita also didn't care that this was my first job and I was still learning the ropes. They would shame me for asking questions. They expected me, the newbie, to come up with solutions to our clients' problems. They refused to do any actual training, and I had to figure things out on my own most of the time. Despite this, they would get mad if I wasn't able to deliver the exact output they wanted. Chelsea was also a notorious procrastinator. She would wait until the last minute to go over my drafts. This would result in so much unnecessary overtime for me and the rest of the team. I was also constantly gaslit. I know we said this, but that's not what we meant. I clarified 3 times. You never reported that. I did. This is not how we do it here. It was. Why are you doing it this way? It's wrong. I just followed her instructions. My fault was my fault. Her fault was my fault. The client's fault was my fault. I just couldn't catch a break. I tried to talk to senior management, but they refused to do anything about Chelsea. The fact that she'd been with the company a while made her untouchable. I wanted to quit multiple times, but my family thought it was a great opportunity and wanted me to keep working there. I eventually got promoted and received a huge pay bump. The golden handcuffs made it even harder to leave, but with the promotion, the work also got heavier. I was in charge of managing and training new hires. I was also expected to take over their work in case they were unable to deliver on time. I had to facilitate meetings with clients, which should have been Chelsea's job. I had to manage our team and ensure that everyone was using their time efficiently. I was expected to remind Chelsea of our team deadlines as she often forgot about them. It got to the point where I was already doing the work of the whole team, Chelsea, my juniors, and my own. The unpaid overtime and office sleepovers continued. Unsurprisingly, my health seriously suffered. The straw that finally broke the camel's back was during my last annual review. To sum it up, I was in charge of this one project. Our client wanted a particular result. Senior management said we could achieve that, but it could only be done a certain way. They eventually delegated the project to me. I was able to deliver the result the client wanted, but without using the method management suggested. Take note, my way did not affect the project. If anything, I felt my method saved the client time and money. When management found out, they made it appear I did nothing right. I tried to reason out, but they didn't care. They eventually used this during my annual review and said that they couldn't promote me since I didn't know how to follow instructions. During this time, I found out Chelsea threw me under the bus. I won't go into details, but she made it appear that I was the reason our team wasn't efficient. I was quiet the entire time and let them speak. I didn't say a single word in my defense. Inside, though, I had snapped. After years of carrying my entire team, this was how they justified not promoting me? My revenge was the only way I knew how. I resigned. I knew Chelsea would have to deal with the work I left behind since it wasn't something they could just delegate to the new hires. I found so much joy knowing that Chelsea would have to bear the brunt of the overtime. I heard years later that some of my team members resigned a few months after I left, and Chelsea had to take over their work too. As for me, after some trial and error, I'm finally with a great boss and work-life balance. Life is good. Edit. I can't divulge too many details, but my line of work requires a certain level of experience to work independently. As I mentioned in the comments, my company insists on hiring new grads. Before I entered the company and at the start of my employment, Chelsea had to do a lot of overtime since the newbies couldn't be left alone. When I started gaining experience, I was able to work independently, and she also began to delegate her work to me. It got to the point where she had nothing on her plate since I was the one managing her whole workload. She finally had some free time. Man, what a ride this story is. Let me tell you, it sounds like a textbook case of a bad boss speedrun. And Chelsea's performance was top-tier villainy. That whole my fault, your fault, everyone's fault is your fault energy, absolutely exhausting. And our last story. My neighbor tore my fence down without my permission. So 3 years ago, I moved into my dream fixer-upper. As a single woman, I'd saved up for this place for years. It's got this beautiful yard full of mature, flowering trees that made me fall in love with it instantly. At first, my neighbor seemed like a sweet guy. He's the original owner of his house and felt like he ran the whole block. but I thought it was just one of those small town things. He'd ask about my job, and when I told him I'm a nurse who works weird shifts, he said he'd keep an eye on my place. He even mowed my lawn a few times and insisted I didn't need to pay him because you're a nurse, you've got enough going on. Honestly, I thought he was a nice guy, but I had no idea what I was in for. Fast forward to last Monday night, I just finished a long shift, was fast asleep when, bam, 9 p.m., there's a knock on my door. It's my neighbor. I groggily get up, and he's standing there telling me we need to replace the fence between our properties. Now, the fence is ancient, about 40 years old, so sure, I get it. During the conversation, he also mentions my tree, saying some of the limbs are starting to encroach on his yard. I tell him, no problem, I'll call an arborist and get it taken care of in the next 2 weeks. We discuss fence designs, agree to figure out costs, and that's that. I thought it was all under control. Then tonight, I come home after another brutal shift, and what do I find? My neighbor has not only ripped out the entire fence, but he's also taken it upon himself to cut down several of my beautiful trees without even asking. I was furious. These were the very trees that made me fall in love with this place. Luckily, my dad happened to stop by right as I was freaking out. And here's the kicker. My dad's a lawyer who knows all about property surveys. The second I told him what happened, he wasn't having any of it. We marched straight over to the neighbor's house, and my dad laid down the law. He pulled out the property survey showing exactly where the property lines were and informed the neighbor that not only had he destroyed my trees, but he'd overstepped big time by tearing down the fence without my consent. My neighbor tried to argue, saying he was just helping out, but my dad wasn't buying it. He let him know that any further action without my permission would result in legal consequences. Now I've got an arborist coming to assess the damage, and we're filing a claim for the trees he cut down without permission. The best part? My dad's already drawn up the paperwork for a new fence. And this time, it's going to be built entirely on my side of the property line. Whoa, what a story. You start with a seemingly helpful neighbor mowing lawns and chatting about your job, and then bam! He morphs into a property line dictator overnight. Your dad coming in as the ultimate legal hero is such a power move, though. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.